welcome to my channel. Thank you for clicking on today's video. And before I begin, I want to invite you to please hit the subscribe button, click the like, and comment down below. Let me know if today's video was of interest to you. It could become a series if it's successful. I'm going to do something a little different. Today I'm doing a voiceover, and I thought while I was doing my diamond painting, I would read you stories so that you could work on your project and just listen instead of having to look at a screen. So I hope this works for you, and please um, tell me down below if you like this series or the beginning of this series, and I could make it a continual thing where I do a whip. It's called a whip in a story. So if you like this idea, please let me know. I would really appreciate it. And that way I'll know whether to continue or to keep going. So it's really important that you comment down below and like if you're listening to the stories and you like what you hear, that you tell me. Because if I don't get any response at all, I won't continue. But if I do, depending on how much response I get, I will keep going with this. So I hope you enjoy A Whip in a Story. The stories I'll be reading to you come from a book I found in my closet, a book you're probably familiar with called Chicken Soup for the Soul, the series. And the one I'm particularly reading from is called Chicken Soup for the Woman's Soul. This particular book was published, what year was this published? What year were you published? 1998, I believe. We'll say 1998, that's what it looks like. So, as you know, or you may not know, Chicken Soup for the Soul, of any of the ones that are out, they're all filled with stories, whatever the subject may be. There's this particular one is Chicken Soup for the Woman's Soul. There's so many others, so you can look them up if you're interested in this one. So before I begin, I'm going to just tell you the canvas I'm working on. I've named it Ocean View, and if you haven't seen the video where I unboxed this one and the other one, the Unicorn Fairy or Unicorn Princess, I'll link it down below so you can get it off Amazon. As you can see, I'm working on the bottom half of it, and it's going pretty good. So anyway, let's continue. So the first story I want to read to you is called It Happened on the Brooklyn Subway. And this story is by Paul Deutschman. And there's usually, and the subheading is called Miracles. This is the chapter, it's called Miracles. And I hope you believe in miracles. I certainly do. We all need to, in this day and age with what's going on in the world. We need to believe that this virus will dissipate and disappear, hopefully quickly. Right now, it seems to be going through a second wave, but hopefully it won't last, and maybe we can see down the road this being completely gone. So with that said, let's hope for miracles. The quote under the subheading of miracles reads by Albert Einstein, "There are only two ways to live your life. One is as though nothing is a miracle. The other is as though everything is a miracle." So let's read It Happened on the Brooklyn Subway. Marcel Sternberger, a native of Hungary, was a man of nearly 50, with bushy white hair and kind brown eyes. A methodical man, he always took the 9:09 train from his suburban home to Queens, New York, where he caught a subway into the city. On the morning of January 10th, 1948, Sternberger boarded the 9:09 as usual. En route, he suddenly decided to visit a Hungarian friend who lived in Brooklyn and was ill. So Sternberger changed to the subway for Brooklyn, went to his friend's house, and stayed until mid-afternoon. He then boarded a Manhattan-bound subway for his Fifth Avenue office. Here is Marcel's incredible story. The car was crowded, and there seemed to be no chance of a seat. But just as I entered, a man sitting by the door suddenly jumped up to leave, and I slipped into his empty place. I'd been living in New York long enough not to start conversations with strangers, but being a photographer, I have always had the peculiar habit of analyzing people's faces, and I was struck by the features of the passenger on my left. He was probably in his late 30s, and when he glanced up, his eyes seemed to have a hurt expression in them. He was reading a Hungarian language newspaper, and something prompted me to say in Hungarian, "I hope you don't mind if I glance at your paper." The man seemed surprised to be addressed in his native language, but he answered politely, "You may read it if you like. I'll have time later on." Instead of reading, we began to talk. During the half-hour ride to town, I learned his name was Bela Paskin. A law student, when World War II started, he had been put into a German labor battalion and sent to the Ukraine. Later he was captured by the Russians and put to work burying the German dead. After the war, he covered hundreds of miles on foot until he reached his home in Debrecen, a large city in eastern Hungary. When he went to his former address, he found the apartment that had once been occupied by his father, mother, brothers, and sisters, as well as the apartment he had shared with his wife, were both occupied by strangers. None of them had ever heard of his family. Full of sadness, he turned to leave when a boy ran after him, calling, "Paskin, Paxi, Paskin, Paxi." That means Uncle Paskin. The child was the son of some of his old neighbors. He went to the boy's home and talked to his parents. "Your whole family is dead," they told him. "The Nazis took them to Auschwitz." Auschwitz had been one of the world's worst Nazi concentration camps. Hearing this, Paskin gave up all hope. A few days later, too heartsick to remain any longer in Hungary, he set out again on foot, stealing across the border until he reached Paris. He managed to immigrate to the United States in October 1947, just 3 months before I met him. The entire time he had been talking, I kept thinking that somehow his story seemed unfamiliar. A young woman whom I had met recently at the home of friends had also been from Debrecen. She had been at Auschwitz. From there, she had transferred to work in a German munitions factory. Her relatives had been killed in the gas chambers. Later, she was liberated by the Americans and was brought here in 1946 in the first boatload of displaced persons. Her story had moved me so much that I had written down her address and phone number, intending to invite her to meet my family and thus help relieve a little of the terrible emptiness in her life. It seemed impossible that there could be any connection between these two people, but as I neared my station, I fumbled anxiously in my address book. I asked in what I hoped was a casual voice, "Was your wife's name Maria?" He turned pale. "Yes," he answered. "How did you know?" He looked as if he were about to faint. I said, "Let's get off the train." I took him by the arm at the next station and led him to a phone booth. He stood there like a man in a trance while I dialed her phone number. It seemed a long time before Maria Paskin answered. Later, I learned her room was near the telephone, but she was in the habit of never answering it because she had few friends and the calls were always for someone else. This time, however, there was no one else at home, and after letting it ring for a while, she responded. When I heard her voice at last, I told her who I was and asked her to describe her husband. She seemed surprised at the question, but gave me a description. Then I asked her where she had lived in Debrecen, and she told me the address. Asking her to hold the line, I turned to Paskin and said, "Did you and your wife live on such and such a street?" "Yes," Bella exclaimed. He was white as a sheet, trembling. "Try to be calm," I urged him. "Something miraculous is about to happen to you." Here, take the telephone and talk to your wife. He nodded his head in mute bewilderment, his eyes bright with tears. He took the receiver, listened a moment to his wife's voice, then suddenly cried, "This is Bella! This is Bella!" And he began to mumble hysterically. Seeing that the poor fellow was so excited he couldn't talk coherently, I took the receiver from his shaking hands. "Stay where you are," I told Maria, who also sounded hysterical. "I am sending your husband to you. We will be there in a few minutes." Bella was crying like a baby and saying over and over again, "It is my wife. I go to my wife." At first I thought I had better accompany Paskin, lest the man should faint from excitement, but I decided that this was a moment in which no stranger should intrude. Putting Paskin into a taxicab, I directed the driver to take him to Maria's address, paid the fare, and said goodbye. Pella Paskin's reunion with his wife was a moment so poignant, so electric, releasing with suddenly released emotion, that afterward neither he nor Maria could recall much about it. I remember only that when I left the phone, I walked to the mirror like a dream to see if maybe my hair had turned gray, she said later. The next thing I knew, a taxi stops in front of the house, and it is my husband who comes toward me. Details I cannot remember. Only this I know, that I was happy for the first time in many years. Even now, it is difficult to believe that it happened. We have both suffered so much. I've almost lost the capability to not be afraid. Each time my husband goes from the house, I say to myself, will anything happen to take him from me again? Her husband is confident that no horrible misfortune will ever again befall them. Providence has brought us together, he said simply. It was meant to be. So that's the end of that story. That was very nice, wasn't it? So I'm going to go to a different chapter. This one is chapter 7, Overcoming Obstacles. This quote is from a Navajo song. Walk on a rainbow trail, walk on a trail of song, and all about you will be beauty. There is a way out of every dark mist over a rainbow trail. And the story I'm going to read is called Low Fat and Happy. And this story is written by Teresa Collins. When you're a kid, it's tough being different. By the time I was 10, I was taller than most kids and overweight. It was then that I began to hide my eating. I felt bad enough about my size, but when the others laughed at me, it only made me feel worse, and I turned to food for comfort. For a time, I tried slumping so that I'd be closer to my friends' sizes, but my mother wouldn't allow it. Mom always said to me, "Be proud of your height. You've never seen a short model, have you?" That got my attention. To me, the word model stood for beauty, which certainly wasn't included in the vocabulary I would have used to describe myself. One day I was crying about how some of my friends got attention from boys that I didn't. Mom sat me down again. I remember the soft, comforting look in her beautiful baby blue eyes as she told me the story of the ugly duckling, how the little bird's beauty was revealed when its time arrived. Mom told me that we all have our time on earth to shine. This is their time, she said. Your time will come when you become a woman. I listened to Mama's story over and over throughout my growing up years, but my time never really seemed to come. Grown and married, I started to have my babies. After the birth of each of my 3 sons, I always hung on to 20 pounds. When I got pregnant with my last son, I went into the pregnancy weighing 209 pounds. After that, for a period of 8 years, I gave up on ever being a normal weight again. I was the first to crack jokes about my size, laughing with the others on the outside, but crying intensely on the inside. I hid my eating binges from my family, hating myself for what I was doing, but unable to control myself. At the age of 34, I weighed 300 pounds. I was in pain 24 hours a day with degenerative disc problems. My body felt stretched and crushed all at the same time. Stepping on the scale at 300 pounds was a turning point in my life. The scale registered that enormous number, but I felt like a zero, and I realized with startling clarity that if I didn't gain control of my life, I wouldn't be around much longer. I thought of my precious sons. I wouldn't be there to watch them grow up. I'd miss their first crushes, first heartaches, proms, driver's licenses, graduations, weddings. I'd never hold my grandbabies. At that moment, I knew I had two choices, live or die. Something inside me broke free, and I heard myself screaming, I'm going to live. I deserve to live. Live, live. I screamed loud enough to awaken a new me. How I wanted to live that day. I had a drive inside I'd never felt before. I knew that I was going to do everything in my power to win this battle. I wasn't going to give up on me ever again. This powerful force inside me for life was a force of love as well. I felt the spark of love for myself as I was that had been gone for a long time. I decided for the first time ever that I was going to lose weight the healthy way. In the past, I had abused diets as much as I had abused food. I had starved the weight off to the point of losing my hair and developing blurred vision. This time, I would set small goals so that when I reached them, it would give me the confidence to continue. I learned to prepare and enjoy low-fat, healthy foods. I also developed a new way to talk to myself about food. When food called out to me, instead of saying, go ahead, girl, eat, who's going to know? The new Teresa was firm. No, I will not eat in private and guilty silence anymore. I will eat when I choose, not when food dictates. How wonderful it felt when I made it through another day without cheating. Toughest of all, I had to concentrate on the positives in my life. I had always been so good at encouraging others. Now I realized the person who needed me most was me. I made myself wear makeup because it made me feel prouder of myself. Some days, that was just a little push I needed to get me through. As the weight came off and I got smaller, my confidence in myself grew and grew. I remember the first time I went to the regular, not plus size section of a local department store. I cried as I looked around at all the racks of clothes I knew I could wear. I grabbed 20 outfits and went to the dressing room. The attendant raised her eyebrows in surprise, saying, all of these? I smiled broadly. All of these, I answered proudly. Zipping up a pair of jeans, I felt a wonderful sense of freedom. I'm going to make it, I thought. In 9 months, I lost 108 pounds, but then I hit a plateau. For years, I had blamed my weight on a slow metabolism and had always fought exercise like I fought losing weight. Now I knew I couldn't go any further without getting my body moving. I remember telling myself, girl, you weren't blessed with a great metabolism, but you were blessed with 2 legs, so get out there and do something about that slow metabolism. So I did. Parking my car near a wheat field by my home, I walked along the fence till I reached the end of the 1-mile-long field. If I wanted to get home, I had to get back to my car, so I had no choice but to walk the return mile. It was hard at first, but it got easier and easier as the weeks and months went by. Within another 8 months, I was at my target weight of 170 pounds. I had lost 130 pounds. At 5 feet 11 inches, I am a size 12. Best of all, I'm alive, not only in body, but in spirit as well. Now my husband flirts with me, and our kids think we are weird because we're so happy together. Plus, I'm able to be the active mom with my sons the way I'd always dreamed. We fish, play ball, or just hang out together, and amazingly, I have the energy to keep up. Today, at age 36, I'm blessed with a new career. Writing and publishing my low-fat cookbook has been one of the most exciting adventures I have ever been on. Because of the book and the motivational speaking I do to promote it, I've been given the opportunity to reach out to others who, like I once had, have all but given up hope of losing weight and gaining control of their lives. For me, losing weight was about choosing life over and over and over again. I remember a day on one of my walks by the wheat field, when I reached over the fence and grabbed a stem of wheat to hold in my hand as I walked. I remembered from school that to the ancient Greeks, wheat represented life. Whenever I felt like giving up that day, I looked at the wheat in my hand, and it spurred me on to finish my 2-mile hike. I still have that piece of wheat when I have a tough day. I look at it, and it reminds me of a girl, and later a woman, who for years thought there was no hope, but through faith, courage, and love found her hope and her life again. It is finally my time to shine. Hey guys, just wanted to come back on for the last minute of this video. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the stories. And like I said at the beginning, please let me know down below if you like them and if this is something that you'd be interested in me doing in the future for whippin' stories, as I like to call it. Please let me know down below. If I don't get any response, then I will discontinue it. But I hope you enjoyed it. I will be sharing more stories out of this book. So, please hit like and subscribe and share with all your friends if you think they might enjoy this. So, I hope you have a great day, and I will talk to you again. I will exit the video playing more music.